Okay, let's go ahead and get this started. Welcome to another Byte session hosted by Hacker Refactor. We're happy that you're here. Hacker Refactor is a club that is intended to help encourage you to learn and grow and become part of a community and get support for people that are in computer science here at OSU Cascades. Byte sessions are more of the education part of it. Today we're happy to have Brian Rayburn here. He's going to tell us about the farm stack, whatever that is. I'm excited to learn. Oh, one last thing. This does count for your pro dev if you're in any computer science classes. So make sure you take this opportunity to take a selfie or whatever to make sure you have evidence that you were here. You can get that checked off for your list. That's about all I have. I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thanks everyone for coming. Okay, so the plan today, we don't have a lot of time, but the plan is to guide you through the process of setting up a full stack web application using a certain stack. And there's lots of different options here that you could choose. And obviously can't cover them all. Can't even cover them at an abstract level. Instead, I just want to focus in on one particular technology, which is called the farm stack. I'll explain what that means. And now why this one? I mean, you may have heard of the LAMP stack or MERN or .NET stack or Jamstack or whatever, right? There's lots of things out there. And this one, the farm stack is, well, it's relatively new. It's very user-friendly. And the various tools are adopted by people and companies in the industry. So, you learn stuff about Python and JavaScript and React. Okay, so, we only have time to dip our toes into these deep pools, right? It's very shallow dips. Just going to skim along the surface, but try to go from the setting up the database all the way to the front end in 30 minutes. I don't know if this is going to work, but I think we can do it. And my plan is to keep things as simple as possible, the very basic configuration, right? So there's no fancy stuff going on. I mean, there's fancy stuff going on, but there's no extra fancy stuff going on. So keep things simple, free from unnecessary complications. So, I mean, you can try to code along if you want, but I recommend you don't because I can't stop and help debug. But I'll post a GitHub repo that will have the end result, and I'll share these slides with these guys and I can send them to you. Okay, so let's go. We don't have very much time. So, no, not that. Yeah, and if you have a really burning clarification question, feel free to ask, but I'll probably have to cut you off and move on. Okay, so farm stack. That is FastAPI, which is a Python framework. React, R is React, JavaScript, and M is MongoDB. So it's a Mongo database. You've got FastAPI on the back end, Python thing, and then React. Okay, so we need to make all these, set these things up and make all these connections. Okay, so now I'm not going to go through all this, but if you want to do this at home, well, of course you need Python. So download that. You need Node.js for React. So if you played around with Python and React, you probably have these things already. And you need MongoDB, and there's a free version, the Community Server Edition. So you just download that. And I'm gonna set all this stuff up just locally right here on my machine. So if you're really doing this, you should probably do a virtual machine or Docker the whole thing. And I Dockerized it on the repo. I'm just gonna do it right here. So you'll have to have all this stuff installed if you're gonna do this. Okay, so let's get going. So assume we've got Mongo installed, and let's set up. So what we need to do first is we need to set up a place, a database. Right, we're going to set up a folder, a directory where our data is going to be. Right, and again, I'm just doing this here, but really this would be up on the cloud server somewhere. So let me go to a terminal here, and let's make a directory called data. I might have already made this directory. I did. Okay, and then let's go in there and let's make in there. Let's just make something called DB. Okay, so that's just basically the folder where the stuff is going to be on my computer. We don't need to be in there actually. Okay, so now we got this place, and now there's a command to spin up the Mongo server, which you wouldn't know unless you looked at the documents, but it's just Mongo D, and that might just work for you. Like there's a default, it'll set up a default folder, but just to make sure, I'm going to tell it where I want things to live. The DB path, the one I just made, data DB. Okay, so if everything works all right, that should start up the Mongo server. Okay, there it is. Oh yeah, so on a new window. So I mean, that doesn't really look like much so far, right? But something's happening, and just like window management is going to be really tricky right here. Okay, so this Mongo thing is going, and now we can see that it's going, I guess. Like we look at the process and we filter it. I don't know. So is this one? Okay, so something's happening, but we can go into the Mongo shell, and that's just Mongo shell. That'll take us into the Mongo shell. Oh, set a bunch of things there. It says, okay, it's running at localhost 27017. That's the default where Mongo runs. See the docs for more information, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but it gives us this little prompt. Test, it just defaults to test. But if we say show DBs, it tells us, okay, you've got admin, config, and local. Those ones just are default. But we want to make a database that we're going to use for our web app. And so let's, the command for that is use, and then let's call it farmdb. So that one doesn't exist yet, but I'm just saying switch to that, and so it doesn't exist, so it's going to make it. So use farmdb. Okay, so switch to farmdb. And then there's nothing in it, which we could see by saying show collection. So we're using, so Mongo is a NoSQL database, right? So it's so the analog of like a table in a relational database is what is called a collection in Mongo, and the analog of a row in a table is what's called a document. So we've got our database called farmdb. Within that, well, we don't have any tables and we don't have any rows in any tables. But let's make one. So I have notes here so I don't get lost in this, but db dot create collection, And what we want to call it, well, I'm just going to call it things. So now I'm going to make this collection or table called things. Okay, it says, and now if I say show collections, it says, okay, yeah, you got this one called things. But there's nothing in things, right? And if we did like db.things.find, which is like find all the things, or sorry, I didn't mean to say things, but find everything in the things collection. It says, oh, there's nothing there. So let's put one in there. Okay, so this is going to be sort of important because this is what we're going to be doing in Python on our backend. We're going to have commands like this, like find and insert. Right, we basically want to set up these like CRUD operations, right? Okay, so let's put one in there. So db.insert. I mean, there'd be no reason why you would know these like Mongo query language things, but they're like lots of other things. db.insert1, and now we're going to put something in here. And so the nice thing about Mongo and these is that the things you're dealing with are sort of like JSON objects. So we're just going to say name. I'm just going to give this key name and just call it thing1. And I'll give another key of description. Description, comma, or colon. And I will, a thing that shines, something, some sort of thing. Okay, so if all that's right, then that will insert that JSON-like object into our Mongo database. Insert1 is not a function. What? Insert, did I spell it wrong? No. Oh, right, yeah. Oof. I knew something was going to go wrong. Insert 1. Ugh. Oh, it's just, so I just don't want to type all that. So. db.things.insert1. Okay, that should be right. Okay, so acknowledged true, inserted blah, and it gives me this. It generates a special Mongo ID, which are important. Okay, so now if we say show, I'm gonna have to hurry up, but should we say show db dot things dot find. Now there should be something in there, and there is. So there's this. So our collection is this array that has one thing in it, and it's this JSON-like thing, which has this special Mongo ID, whatever, name thing1 description, the thing that shines. Okay. So, and now there's all kinds of other like query things we could do. We could, insert many. We could insert one. We could find certain ones by a certain filter, all that sort of thing. Okay, but that's set up. Okay, on to the backend stuff. So now we got, so Mongo's up, it's running. There's even something in our database, but now we need to connect to it with our backend, and so we need to set that up. So let's start making things here. So let's make a directory. Wait, actually, I'm gonna cd into desktop. And I'm gonna make a directory called I don't know, byte farm, something. That's gonna be our directory for this project. Nothing in it, obviously. Okay, so and then we will just make a directory for our backend, for our FastAPI app, and let's just call that backend. Okay, and CD into backend. And okay, so now one thing we need to do is, let's see, where am I on my slides here? So I did the Mongo shell. Okay, so we need to install this library. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do this, but we basically need, we don't need to do this. You could do it and make your own, but we're going to install this library called PyMongo, which is like a Python Mongo interface. It's going to allow us to connect to the database nicely in our Python backend. Okay, so we're going to pip install PyMongo. I already did probably. Okay, already satisfied for me, but so PyMongo is installed. Okay, so our directory so far looks like this. Can you guys see that? We've got our farm. Oh, I called it byte farm. But we got byte farm as the main directory. In that we've got our backend folder, and then we got we're going to make a database file right now. So let's just get in there. So I'm just getting VS Code going. I'm going to put it in a different. Is that visible? Okay. So in the backend, we're going to make a file called database.py. Leave me alone, Copilot. Okay. And well, we're going to import PyMongo from PyMongo. Well, from PyMongo, we're going to import the Mongo client. Okay, it's just telling me, hey, you did that, but it's not used. Fine. Okay. And now we want to connect to that Mongo database that we spun up over there, right? So let's just introduce a variable called connection. And what is the port? Well, it was 27017, right? And so I'm going to say MongoDB, and then the port was localhost 27017. That's just a way of saying I want to connect to a Mongo thing at that port. That's where the connection is going to be. And now I'm going to use this Mongo client. I mean, you could do this all on one line, of course, but I'm trying to show you what's going on at the connection. Okay, so this is where the special magic is happening in this Mongo client that we've imported. Let's see, at some point here we'll be able to see something. So, well, how about right now? Like if we get another terminal. No, not a tab. Ugh, everything's all small. That's fine. Let's just go here and cd desktop cd byte farm. So I forgot it was so far in here. Backend. Okay, so there's a database.py. So what happens if we just run that file just to see what's happening? Oh, nothing, because I didn't print anything. I can do it right here too. I actually have no idea whether this will do anything. Oh yeah, so it's telling us, can everyone see that? So I printed the client here, right? Connection, and it's telling us, okay, that's right here. Mongo client host local blah connection true. Okay, so we're connected to it, right? That's what that means. That's good. Things are happening. I know this is not looking like much yet, but it just means like all that setup. Okay, I have to go faster now. So DB, so our database was called things, no, FarmDB, right? That's what we made, this database called FarmDB. And then our collection in that thing we called things. So that's just the database that we just were just talking about, things. Okay, I mean that's like a lot of lines to do one thing, but I just wanted to break it down. Okay, so the collection variable there is really the important thing, right? We've got this connection to our Mongo database, and we've got this thing called collection. I don't know, if we print collection, what do we get? It'll probably look about the same. Yeah, it's telling us, okay, you got this collection, database, Mongo, blah, FarmDB, things. It doesn't really look like much, but it's giving us the information that we are connected to the FarmDB database and have access to the things collection. Okay, so let's get some actual something happening here. Okay, so in PyMongo there are methods that correspond to the sorts of things I was doing in the Mongo query language, right? So we have like .find, .find1, .insert1. Right? Notice it's the case, and it's like snake case, and like there's some slight differences, but it's basically the same things. So that's what we're going to use in Python to talk to the Mongo database. We're going to use these PyMongo methods. Sorry, okay, bumping around. So let's I have to really hurry. Okay. Okay, let's do it. I might as well just go through it instead of trying to rush. So, so I'm just going to write a function like called get1 to get one thing out of this database. And actually, I'm just going to do something slightly more simple, like get one by name. So we're going to be able to pass in a name, and it'll get us the first thing with that name in the database. So we want to get that thing with that name. So we want to go into the collection. And now there's all these methods on it, right? And so we want to find one. And well, which one? Well, we're going to find the one that has its name field is whatever name we pass in. Okay. And then, well, we could return that thing, or let's return the description of that thing. Return that thing's description. Okay, so we've made this little function. It's going to go into the Mongo database, get the thing that has that name, first thing really, and then give us back that thing's description. So since we have something in there, it should work to say, this, let's, I think thing one is what we called it. Give your variables better names. So we're gonna get this thing, we're gonna run the function on thing one. Should work, let's see. So if we do python database.py, okay, good, we got the description back, the thing that shines. Okay, so good, we're making all the right connections. And we could return like dictionary object of, and that's what we're going to do. Okay. So actually, before we do that, I'm going to do one other thing. So that's sort of this is the connection between, this is like the first layer connection to the database, right? Through our FastAPI backend. But we haven't even actually set up the FastAPI backend yet. We just have this database file. So let's move on to the FastAPI API part. So we're going to make another file. Let's just call it main.py. And we're going to, from Fast, you will have to have pip installed FastAPI, but from FastAPI, import this FastAPI thing class. And then, well, we're going to get an instance of that. Let's just call it apps. That's what people usually call it. FastAPI. Okay, so that's our instance of the FastAPI thing. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make use of that function we just defined to connect into the database, and we're going to make a little endpoint, our backend endpoint. And I mean, the FastAPI has all these nice pre-built functions and everything. Right? That's why people are using it. And so there's a decorator function that you make use of to make your endpoint, at app.get. Right, so if you see .app, right, so there's all these things, .get, .post, .put. So we're going to do .get. And then you specify like what the endpoint, what the URL is. Let's just do that, nothing, slash. And now if I just define a function here that this function is going to eat, basically, and give me back the endpoint thing. Function to eat it. Take it as input. The decorator function is a function that takes a function and gives you back a function. So, blah, give your functions better names. Let's just call it that, and return well, for now, let's just return something. Okay, so we're going to return just this JSON, this like dictionary thing, message block. Okay, so now if we spin up our FastAPI app, something should be happening. Not quite with our database yet, but we're almost there. Is everyone with me so far? Okay, so here, actually, I had color coordinated these, but I've kind of lost track of them. So here's my FastAPI color coordinated terminal. CD light farm CD. Just couldn't remember what they all are. Okay, and now oh yeah, you have to pip install uvicorn as well, which is the server. All this stuff is in the notes, but that's it basically. So we're going to do this uvicorn, and then we called our file main. That would do it, but you put this flag of reload on it, it will like kind of fresh hot reload. So that should spell it wrong. Okay, so now it's saying, okay, uvicorn running on localhost 8000. So that's the port where the FastAPI is. Oh, and it's done. Okay. And now, let's see, where am I? So we've defined this endpoint slash where we should get the message, or this thing, message block. And so if we go to localhost 8000, something should be there. Oh, didn't want to go to that yet. Okay, so there it is. So that's at localhost 8000. We've hit this kind of, nothing, the endpoint with nothing after it. And it's giving us this message block, which is what we wanted. Now, a nice thing about FastAPI is it has this stocks interface, and so so you can see what all your endpoints are, and you can test them out. So we made this one called blah. It's a get endpoint, so we use get. It doesn't take any parameters. It'll give us back a string. Yeah, I guess that's right. And now if we execute it, it says, okay, I hit that endpoint, and here's your response body. Okay, so that's nice. Okay, but now let's actually go make one that's getting something from the database. Everyone with me? Okay. Oh, okay. You're fascinated. Okay. Okay, so we need to make this like FastAPI Mongo connection. So from our, so here we've got in our main file, let's import that database function we made. So from database import, what do we call it? Get one by name. I think that's what I call it. Get one by name. And so now let's use that instead. Okay, so let's get rid of this business. And let's still going to be a get endpoint, but we want to like dynamically pass in a name. So just have this variable thing name, and then make a function called get one name. I mean, this is too long of a name. By name. That's a very similar name to the other function, but it's a different function. Get one thing by name, and we'll pass in the thing name, and let's return just whatever our get one by name function gets us when it goes to the database and finds the thing with that name, which is the description. I know it says thing. What's that? What?
It says form database instead of
Form. Yeah, thank you. Now you might wonder, like, why are you defining like this function here, and you've already defined this other function and the other thing? And this one's kind of not doing anything, so we're just like passing it through. Well, it's just sort of like a separation of concerns sort of thing, and when things get more complicated, then this function could be more complicated. So right now it kind of looks redundant, but just think of it like this: like the database.py, that's where we're interacting with using PyMongo to interact with the Mongo database, and then here is our FastAPI endpoint. So it's sort of like two different things that we can separate. And okay, so that should now if we go back to that, if I could find it, that FastAPI thing, and reload it, it should give us this endpoint now. Thing name, and notice how it like does this nice thing where it like labels it nicely depending on what you call the function. Let's get one thing by name. Okay, but now this one takes a parameter, right? So we have to give it a thing name. So let's just call it thing1 was what I called it. We execute, and it gives us back that response. Okay, so it's like the same thing that happened before in the terminal, but now it's sort of served up on our FastAPI backend. And now, now we could, once we make our front end, we can hit this endpoint and present that in a nice way in the web browser. Okay. Okay, but so this sort of stuff I've done now is sort of like toy functions and things, right? But what we really want is some functions that are like, that correspond to like our CRUD operations, our create, read, update, delete, or insert, find, update, delete, or post, get, put, delete, right? They're all the same thing, kind of, but at different levels. I think in the interest of time, I might just cut and paste them in here, but I'll explain what they're doing. Because I know that I have them right here. And actually, I'm just going to cut and paste this whole thing. Or no, I won't do that. Yeah, we'll do that. I wanted to like do everything without, just like typing it, but it's going to take too long. So I'm just going to, no, not there. I'm just going to replace everything that we just did. It's going to be the same, just some extra stuff involved, which I'll explain. Okay. So, that. Okay. Okay, so this is something new. I'll say what that is, but everything else is the same. We've done the connection, and now I've made this like slightly more realistic function here, get all, where again it's just gonna go to the collection, do this find all. And now the thing is that the thing you get back is not like an array. It's this sort of Mongo cursor thing that's pointing at it, and so you have to just loop over it and get everything out of it, and then just append them. So that's all that's going on here. We're just like going through, we're just like saying like, okay, those are saying like, okay, they're all the things. And say, okay, loop through and append those into an array for me, and call that things, and then give me back this dictionary, things with those things, that array of things. And then there's something slightly tricky going on right here, which is that Mongo makes these unique IDs for everything, and they're not strings. So you basically have to pass it to a string. I'm going to ask about that. I'm just going to ignore that for now. Okay, but we've got these functions: get all, get one thing, and get it by its ID instead of by its name now. Post a thing, so it's going to insert one thing. Delete one, it's just using the delete one. So this is all sort of like the same as like the find and get. It's just, and then update is slightly more complicated, and I won't mention what it is. It's nothing crazy. Okay, and then let me update the main.py one as well. Okay, I don't have time to do this yet. I was going to go through and like run into a CORS violation and fix it up and stuff. I'm just going to put it there for now. So now I'm just importing all this stuff from the database. You can just think of this CORS thing as just some boilerplate. Like we're going to set up our React front end at localhost 3000, and it'll get mad if we don't say it's okay. So this here we're just saying it's okay. You can talk to React. You can talk to port 3000. And then again, we just have these endpoints, things, thing, get one by ID, post a thing, delete a thing, put a thing. Now actually that should all be set up so that our FastAPI thing has all that stuff in it now. So it's got the things, post. So now I could post a thing. So if I did like this, name thing 2, description. Now, like the Mongo database doesn't really care with the shape of your data very much, right? It's very liberal. It's not like a relational database with all these restrictions. So like the restrictions, you're gonna have to be built in somewhere else. It's like pydantic models be the way, but I'm not doing that right now. Description. Another thing. Okay, so then that should work. Okay, so it says, and then it gives us back this response of, okay, yeah, I added this thing, and this is its ID. And notice here that the ID is a string because we cast it to a string. If we didn't cast it to a string, there'd be a server error right here. It'd say, I don't know what that is. Okay. So we got all these FastAPI endpoints. Okay, let me see where I'm at in terms of where I was going to do and see what I can finish off with. Blah, did that, got that connection. Yep, did that. Okay, we're ready for React. And maybe just like 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. Let me go over here. I've got a special colored terminal. And let's cd into desktop, cd into byte farm. Okay, so we've got this. Sorry, this is way less time than I thought it was going to be. But so we've got what do we have so far? We have a Mongo database running on port 27017. We have FastAPI backend running on port 8000, talking to the Mongo database and grab things. Thank you. I will present these now. So we need to spin up a React application, well, right here, you know, just this sort of thing. You got to read the docs, right? Create React app, my app. I'm not going to call it that. I'm going to call it something else. But all that is boilerplate sort of thing. Create React app. I'm going to call it front end. Does that make sense? Yeah, you have to have certain things installed to do this, like Node.js. Okay, so while that's, make sure that's going. Okay, while that's going, let me say something about what's happening in React. There's so many things to talk about, isn't there? So with React, we're basically doing JavaScript, right? But we're using JSX, and here's a React component, the toy one, made that, you know, and notice that it's employing JSX, which is an extension of JavaScript. And I mean, so we're just defining a JavaScript function. I've just introduced some variables, blah, and X and Y. But then this is the sort of unique thing with React is now, notice that what we're returning down here looks like HTML. But it's not HTML, it's JSX. But it looks like all these HTML tags. And for the most part, it is just like HTML. There's like there's a couple little things you have to tweak. But notice here I'm passing in this variable blah with curly braces. So that's that would, if this was showing up on a web page, this would say hello JSX, and you know, this would say the sum of 5 and 10 is, you know, and then it runs the JavaScript in the curly braces as well. What else was I going to say? I'm not going to say any of that. There's lots to say about that JSX. Let's see if our React application is still going. Okay, I can say some more. Yeah, question? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it would be exactly that. It'd be any sort of time you want to have a website where you want to input some data and have it stored in your Mongo database, or you want to your website, maybe you want to fetch some stuff from your Mongo database. That's what all those connections happening. I know it's kind of hard to see because I haven't got to like the big picture yet. But I mean, I could happy hacking. I could well, maybe I can get it right now. I know we're basically out of time, but we're like really close to having the whole thing there. So now we got this folder front end. So if we cd into front end, you know, it sets up all this stuff for us for this React application. Actually, let's see. Wait, I already have it open over here. Right? But yeah, it's a good question. Like, what's going on here? I mean, what's going on here is like what's going on every website on the internet, right? It's just a particular version of it. Okay, so I can show you. So now we got our front end, got all this stuff. App.js is where most of the action is going to happen. But we can now spin up that React application. I must have typed the wrong thing. Isn't that the right? Isn't that the right thing?
Are you in the front end?
Oh yeah. The number of times I do that. Yeah, so I had to be in the front end directory. npm start will spin up the React application at here, and it's not going to be super impressive, and we haven't connected it to our backend. That's just like the default React application. You know, like if we, just to show you that we can change things in here. So this is the code for what you were just seeing. So, you know, we just say, whatever, wish you. Yeah, it's changing. And really what we'd want to do here is, well here, maybe I can just do this. I think I have it right here somewhere. Yeah. It's not really helpful for you to watch me cut and paste things, but just so you can see. So this is the front end code I was going to write, which basically just uses this fetch, and we're fetching where endpoint 8,000 things, right? Which is we've seen that point before. We're going to get something, and then then we're going to present it in the DSS. So it might be, oh, there it is. Okay, so and then there it is. And I put all like the post and delete and things in there as well. So, so it's in there. Delete things.
So this is adding and removing items in the Mongo database.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So if we went in back into the Mongo shell and we looked, we'd see everything we're doing here is happening there via FastAPI. So I don't know, maybe that's a better answer to what you're asking.
Yeah, I just want to look at build with all this, right?
Yeah.
So if they were to spend that there,
Mhm.
and then they have this modern database to live somewhere online in the cloud, so that
Yeah, so I mean, so far this is all just on my local computer, but so deployment is another issue, and yes, I mean basically the Mongo database would live on a server, maybe through MongoDB company itself or whatever, or you can do lots of options at that point. But yeah, but what's happening is basically the same, right? You're just hitting a different endpoint. It just happens to be somewhere online instead of locally on your computer. But all the sort of mechanics of it are the same. But yeah, deployment is tricky. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not an expert on that at all, but I'm just saying it's another step. Yeah. But you can run all this on your local computer, and then yeah, I mean, if this is like a real application you're putting out there in the world, yeah, then it'd be all Google Run or something.
Another high level question, Brian. Like,
Yeah.
why would you choose FastAPI?
Um, well, I think there's probably a lot of different answers to that. I don't know. It's quick and easy. It's Python, which is nice. Um, I'm blanking on other good answers. Um, yeah, I mean it's just one tool among many, and it's sort of like Flask. It's if you like Python, then you probably like it. There are probably some things about, well, I don't know. I'm gonna start making up stuff at this point, but then I'll stop. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Um, I mean, yeah. There's just like so many different things you could use. I don't know. Yeah, that's one thing that people hype about it is it's got the nice docs thing. You can, and it is nice when you're developing something because you can just go there and like see like what the response is right away. You can just see the shape of your data right away. It's just like nice to interact with. It's like you have a front end, right? Um, so that makes it nice. Yeah. I was gonna do one more thing. Oh, any questions? Which I'm done. I mean, uh, questions?
From that fast API docs section, could you add items or documents to the MongoDB collection? So from there, would you need to implement the React front
Oh no, you can do it on the React. Yeah, that's another nice thing about it is so you don't actually you don't have to go like the Mongo shell or anything. You can just do it right there on the FastAPI.
on the docs portion of the fast API?
Yeah, I'll show you. Here, I was just gonna do this. I just threw on like the stupidest CSS. There you go. Because I was like, it doesn't look like anything, but there you go. There's something. There's a. Now we have a full stack web application. Okay. You can delete things. You can add things. I mean, we also have the functionality there to like update things, but I didn't put that on the front end yet. I don't think. But let me answer that question. Where's that? I knew I was going to get all lost in these windows.
So when you demonstrated what you said, what's that? When you get job listings,
They're saying you can do all of that, but I just did. Yeah.
well, there you go, guys.
You can mess with the database. You can set up a back end. You can do some front end React or something else. You know what HTML is, but yes, that's right. That was a full stack that you saw, and I didn't quite complete it. Localhost 8000. I'm just going to go to it. Sorry, I can't find it. So you were asking whether here you could post one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely you can post one here. So if I say new thing, and I say description blah. Then execute. Well, here, say, yep, you did that. And now if we go over to our front end that's running at 3000, well, it won't like show up there right away. It will show up if you put it here, but if you refresh, it'll be there. Yeah.
So someone managing a database that doesn't have any front end development, hit up their database there. Docs.
Yeah, on the docs, yeah. So now on the docs here, like before you're even messing with React or your front end stuff, you do that, you post it, make sure it works, and then you can go here, try it out, get your things, like, okay, here's my data, and I've just added that new thing, right? And then maybe you say, there's its ID, I'm gonna go down here and delete that thing. just like making sure all your endpoints work. So delete, okay, status deleted. Yeah, I don't have to go over there. Just over here, execute the get all things one, and it should be gone now. Yeah. So it's just like, yeah, you're not even messing with the.
And that replaces like instead another query services.
Yeah. Other questions? Anything?
Full stack development.
Yeah. Definitely, I'll take it.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you. Sorry, I know that was like way too